You're listening to Atlanta Baseball Talk, your weekly podcast for all things Atlanta Braves.
Welcome to show number 299. Today is Sunday, May 24th, 2015, and my name is Steve. I am joined by both Hammy and Kurt. And guys, tonight's show is sponsored by Front Row Seats. If you're looking for Braves tickets or any other types of sporting events or shows, you'll get them at the best price online, guaranteed. Use discount code ABT at the Front Row Seats checkout page, and you won't pay any service fees. Visit frontrowseatsllc.com or download the Front Row Seats mobile app today. That's frontrowseatsllc.com. All right, guys, in tonight's show, we'll talk about the team at the quarter mark, the Jonathan Lucroy news, and Freddie being on the hot seat. But first, this was a hell of a good week, guys. A 4-2 week, of course, is always good news. And, you know, I've really had to train myself for the show and just sort of as a fan in general to, not make every week about the long-term prospects and success for the team this year, which has been a real mind shift, over the last few years. But there were some great signs this week, first and foremost, Julio's amazing start. I mean, it was old vintage Julio. The Williams-Perez terrific start. Jace Peterson's walk-off on Saturday. Folty's masterpiece today. I mean, this is really the most pumped about the team I've been since the first week, since the 5-0 week. So, Ham, did it roll over you that way too?
It did, and I think it started last Sunday with Shelby Miller's almost no-hitter, right? I was in Kansas City for my niece's graduation. Congratulations, Hannah. And the vibe in Kansas City is so great. It's like 1992 with the Braves, right? I mean, everywhere you went, the game was on, and don't change the channel, and every conversation was about how are we doing. And at the same time, I'm following the Shelby Miller game on my phone, and I sort of tapped into that feeling of this is really cool right now, and that the Braves are exciting. And I was like, wow, the Braves this season they have the ability to be exciting. And then this week it just sort of built on itself as the week went on. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a great week. It's nice to feel like, wow, this season could really matter. Yeah. After you have invested Steve, you said it perfectly. I've invested so much in thinking about 2017, right? That magical year. And it's nice to be able to be excited by what's going on in the field right now and feel like it matters in the short, long term, right? Like the wins that we're making now in May will count maybe in August and September. And so that's, it's great. It was a great feeling week for the Braves. Best so far. I agree.
Curtis, how about you?
Yeah, and I was at Shelby Miller's start yesterday, which was really one of the most fun baseball games I've been to in a long time. It was an amazingly perfect day out there. Started at 4, so the sun was not as bad, and just such a fun game. Shelby Miller was not great, but he still held him to 2 runs. And I mean, to Ham's point, even to add to that, so many times when you have these young teams that come along, like the Royals last year, where it was like they reached a point and then people were like, oh, but they don't know how to close. They don't know how to be in these situations, and not suggest that the Braves are going to put themselves into the World Series this year. I mean, I would love if that happened, but that they're winning games. They don't have to. That maybe they don't have to go through growing pains where they only win 70 games and they're getting killed all the time and they're not competitive, and that rides with them. Like the teams from the 90s that came up and had so much losing in their past. I mean, how much cooler will it be if these guys know some success and hopefully more success, and that breeds it even more. That instills with them this level of confidence that can only obviously add to what we hope is coming by the time they get to 2017. Maybe it's not even like, maybe it's 2017 is putting the final pieces on this thing,
Yeah, and what's amazing about this squad to me, because we've had those weeks where it's like, oh, well, here's where we really see the real offense and they're not going to be able to score, or oh my God, the bullpen is just a total disaster, or the starting pitching. But they have rebounded and not let it just become this downward spiral of a thing, and they've gotten better. I mean, this team has gotten better over the last few weeks. They have shorn things up, even with all the holes, to put together. I mean, they've won 7 of 10.
It's crazy.
It's just been great. It's just been great. All right, so continuing on with sort of that topic, we're at the quarter mark of the season. The team is 1 game over 500, 22-21. They're 2.5 back in both the NL East and the wild card race. So let's give out some awards at the quarter mark. So, Hammy, who's your MVP so far?
Well, I build CV off of what you just said about not having those long stretches, those long spirals where we go on these huge losing streaks. And, Freeman has been a great value to the team, but I think Shelby has been the most valuable player to our team, because he is, every start that he's come in, he's righted the ship, right? And we haven't had long losing streaks, and I put that to him a lot. I mean, I think that he's been a steadying force, and he has provided the most value to the team this year, Shelby. Obviously the offense has been great. There's been some great starts here and there, but I think he's been the reason that we can really point to the success we've had this season.
All right, Curtis?
Well, and I point even higher. My MVP is John Hart, and I was kind of dubious about him coming in, and wasn't really sure. We obviously all agreed on these moves, that they really, frankly, were the Braves where they had to make these moves. But I mean, you think about this 2015 team and the names, and obviously the bigger names that we know, Shelby Miller, of course, who's been brilliant. But names that he's been able to pull in, and through some of these, obviously through trades, but even some guys like Kelly Johnson, Przinsky, Grilly, and Johnson, guys like that they brought in. Obviously, you get Jace Peterson, you get Fulte and trades, but you could bring in a guy like Gomes for his leadership. Cameron Maben, who's almost like a throw-in in the Kimbrel trade, obviously, but now is our starting center fielder and is playing pretty well. So I have to give a lot of credit to him, and even the guys that we got rid of. We've covered a couple of these, and I'm of course, as Braves fans, everybody's following these. It's not like anybody that we got rid of is just blasting us in the face that we just got rid of. It's not like when the Falcons traded Brett Favre or something, and we had to be reminded of that forever. None of these guys have gone on to these other teams, and I mean, it's still early, yeah, but nobody's been amazing. Nobody's been all-star caliber or MVP caliber. I mean, they've gone on, and either they've kind of been as good as we thought they were when they were here, or they've been worse, frankly. So
yeah, I mean, the small part of me, and I don't mean like it's a tiny part, I mean like I'm a small person, a bad person, imagines the San Diego fans going, God, look at what Jace Peterson is doing, and the Houston fans going, oh my God, Fulte 1 run today.
Yeah.
It's just great. I'm sorry. I'm eating it up. And the Kimbrels had a rough start, and, Gaddis still hitting under 200, and Hayward not getting off to a good start. I'm sorry. I enjoy all of it.
And Melvin hasn't even been able to see the field yet, and God, wait till they get to see him playing. Yeah, and I mean, and think about, and that's not just going to be this one-time thing. I mean, think of some of these other pieces. Now, granted, they're not going to hit on 100% of these.
It's the Teixeira trades, a bunch of Teixeira trades all over it.
With Whistler and some of these other guys.
Banuelos
all these guys. Shelby Miller, I mean, my God, I'm going to love if this continues. I will say this is like 4 shows in a row. If we can as long as we can rub this in St. Louis's face, that we pride Shelby and Miller away from them, and that they might not even end up with Jason Hayward next year because they won't want to pay what they're getting out of him.
Yep, I agree. All right, so my MVP, I'm going to go with Markakis, because I thought about the pitching, Ham. I mean, Shelby for sure, and Kurt, actually, the front office, along with the hitting coaches, were my sort of, 1A. But the offense, I think, has carried the team to a large degree, considering some of the problems we've had with the pitching. And Markakis is first in on-base percentage. He's first in average. He has been the steadying force in the lineup, even more so than Freddie. I mean, Freddie's come on, but Freddie's had some valleys too, and Markakis really hasn't. I mean, Markakis has been as steady as you'd want. in this first 25% of the season. Kurt, to continue on with the John Hart stuff and throwing in the hitting coaches, I mean, the Braves in the National League, they're 8th in runs, they're 8th in batting average, they're 7th in on base. And Ham, what was the Grantland thing that you had brought up in the offseason that Jonah Carey was like, the Braves were 29th in offense last year, and I'll take the entire field?
Yeah. If it's Braves versus the field in terms of offense, I will take the field. So yeah, he had them 29th, just ahead of the Phillies in terms of the weekly 30 that he does. Yep.
I mean, it's just amazing. It's just amazing.
Absolutely.
All right, so guys, the flip side of that coin, Curtis, who is your LVP of the season so far?
It's the back end of the rotation, which is now our long relief corps. It's Cahill and Stoltz, who I guess Stoltz pitched again this week and really was the glaring catastrophe that was the one start against the Brewers. But they've been just really bad. 1-8 ERA basically combined. That's around 7, 50 earned runs and 66 innings pitched. They've just been awful. And you think about what we had last year in those same, and I won't even throw Alex Wood in, but effectively he was an end of rotation guy last year. But we had Gavin Floyd, how great he was for his very minor appearance. David Hale, of course, and then of course Aaron Harang, who was so great all season long. So. As good, and of course, as we hope that Tehran and Wood right the ship and continue to pitch as well as we know they can, and Shelby Miller continues with his Cy Young caliber pitching. It's tough when you have two of the. I mean, well, I will give Williams Perez his one start, but hopefully we will see much more of that. But it's really been a letdown that you've got these two spots in the rotation that really don't give you any wins. They've given you one win all season long.
Well, it's that common refrain that we weren't even worried about the pitching. We're worried about the offense, and the offense has been great enough anyway. And if the pitching had been what it should have been, we could be farther ahead than we are. Hammy, how about you?
For me, it's Betancourt. I know we're going to talk about him more in a bit, but I feel like we really needed him to provide more. I mean, obviously, it's been a huge boon with what Przinsky was able to do early in the season. I think he's coming down to earth, to say the least.
Yeah,
and so we need Betancourt. I mean, it's an important position. And he does. I mean, he'll have a couple of games. He had 3 hits against the Brewers on Thursday. He has a 2-hit game against the Nationals, but otherwise he just does a lot of goose eggs, striking out. And so we need more from him, and I think he's been not so valuable.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go with Eric Young, Jr. He was our starting center fielder. I mean, and this guy, and was so bad that he now became the bench guy, and now he's the worst bench guy on the team. I mean, his slash line coming off the bench is 154, 154, 154.
Ugh. At least he's consistent.
Yeah, exactly. And as a starter, his slash line is 180, 254, 311. I mean, he's really brought nothing. He has the lowest batting average of all the non-pitchers and the lowest OBP other than Betancourt, who at least is bringing more to the team on the days that he catches. And, he caught Tehran's start. I mean...
Sure.
Right.
He's providing a lot defensively, to be fair. Yep.
So, yeah, to me, it's Eric Young. All right, so guys, let's go with our biggest surprise, just sort of in general. So, Hammy, your biggest surprise of the year so far?
Is the offense. And, Steve, you threw a lot of credit, as you did too, Kurt, to the front office. But, for me, Kevin Seitzer deserves a little bit of an MVP nod. You look at some of the stats of our offense compared to last year. Last year in the majors, our batting average was 241. We were 26th out of 30. This year, we're up to 14th at 253. We were 27th in the league in Ks last year at 8.5 a game. This year, we're second, 6.5 per game. Only the Royals have less Ks than we do per game. That's amazing. And our OBP is up as well. We're 24th in majors at 305 last year. This year we're at 319 for 12th. So I mean that's just shocking. You said it, Steve. We thought the pitching would be great. The offense was a worry spot, and it's been amazing this year. Big surprise.
Yeah, Curtis, how about you?
I'm going with Jace Peterson.
God bless Jace Peterson. I'm sorry, I just want to say, I just love.
I'm so happy
like,
for
he's
him.
one of those guys. Like, I just love him already. I really do.
Yeah,
Well,
for him to
and-
have his first homer. Sorry, you go, Curtis.
No, go
He's
ahead.
your guy. Well, no, I mean his first homer, then his first walk off. I mean, it's one of those seasons where you like him, we need him to be good, and it's all coming together. And it's good to be a fan of him right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and we still were having problems with the leadoff position. But now that he's there, they're 8-2 with him batting leadoff for them. 265, 340, 318 for a rookie. He's got 18 RBIs. He's third on the team with on walks. That epic, those epic at bats he had in the Rays game. He had 2 10-pitch walks. I mean,
Crazy.
It is
For a
crazy
rookie. For a rookie.
Yeah. You pull 20 pitches out of a pitcher in 2 walks. That's pretty amazing for
it's
a guy.
game changing. I mean, those are game changing at bats.
Absolutely,
They really are.
And
Momentum
I mean,
swingers. Yeah.
obviously a very young guy, but and this goes back a guy that we were able to pull out of a trade. So yeah, I mean, and to the point where our number one prospect, we're trying to figure out what we do to make sure that both of these guys are on the field as much as possible at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, the offense for me is the biggest surprise. I'll one layer beneath it for me is Andrelton Simmons at the plate. I would never have believed after as bad as he looked last year, just so lost and literally falling over, that he has rebounded so strongly at the plate. And Johnson and Grilly being this solid. Like, one I might have believed, but both of them, it's been amazing. I mean, that these two, 80-year-old guys are anchoring the back of the bullpen. It's really been fantastic.
And your
fired
boy,
up.
Yeah, your boy Avilan's pitching well too.
He is.
Yeah.
He is, despite the beard. He's been able to overcome the beard.
Grilly was so fired up today.
He really
great.
was.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
I think that was because I'm sure it was because they won the game, but also I'm sure that more than anything, they wanted Fulte to get that win after the way he pitched.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right, so guys, the postseason hope meter at the quarter mark. Where are you, Curtis?
Start the booing now. I'm at a 4, and that's not because I don't love this team. I think I've been dumping plaudits here this entire first section of the show, but I still worry about the back end of the rotation. You've got 3 starters, but where do you go after that? Obviously, there is some youth on this team, and what point do they hit a wall? If they do start to tank, are they dumping pieces come the trade deadline, like Johnson, Gomes, all those types of guys.
Krasinski,
Maben, whoever it might be. I'm very excited about this team, but I still looking at a 4.
All right, Hammy? Boo, Kurt. Hammy?
Yeah, boo. And what's funny, just to be honest, is I was going to be a 4 too, but I'm not going to be a 4 officially for the record. I think I'm going to go 5. I mean, it's a coin toss to me. I'm with Curtis. There's just a lot of suspicion about the longevity of this team and if they can keep it up. But we, in a lot of ways, and I talked about the offense, we're a better team than we were last year in some ways. And so I think that it's a little thinner, right? I think that we don't have enough veterans to maybe, I don't know, it could go south faster maybe for this team. But I think it's a coin toss. I mean, I think we have as good a shot as a lot of teams in the majors of making the postseason.
Well, it's amazing. You look at how many games the Braves have won, frankly. I mean, it's almost as simple as that. I mean, we've won more games than the Red Sox. We've won more games than the Mariners. Those were 2 teams that were at the top of everybody's list to make the playoffs this year. I mean, they're kind of hanging around. We've got as many wins as the Angels and the Yankees. So, I mean, it's amazing to kind of think about where we think the Braves are and still with these problems, and that they're as good as and nobody's talking about the Braves. I mean, who would ever talk about the Braves?
And all of that is why I'm a solid 8.
Oh.
Well, look, I'm not talking about winning the NL East, but that second wild card spot, the way things are today, Hammy, I'm with you. It's thin. I don't even want to say the positions out loud, but there's 1, 2, or 3 guys. If they went down, the season is just in the tank. But
exactly.
All things being equal, as the team appears right now, we could absolutely get that second wild card spot.
Only 2 cards out, two games out.
And there's a lot of mediocre teams out there.
Yep, I agree.
We're in good company.
Right. We're behind the Mets right now. So.
Yeah. All right, guys. So reports surfaced this week that the Braves had asked about acquiring Jonathan Lucroy, the catcher for the sinking fast Brewers, which probably has something to do with the fact that while AJ's slash line in April was 422, 442, 689, his slash line in May was 170, or is 170, 220, 234. I hadn't even noticed it, to be honest. But, I mean, my God, it is a precipitous fall. And Betancourt's slash line for the year is 182, 206, 273. So let's talk about this story from a couple angles. So this would seemingly indicate that the Braves were willing, anyways, to give up on Betancourt through 2017, as Lucroy is not a free agent until 2018. So how do you feel about that, Hammy?
Well, I mean, I think if you take Lucroy out of the situation, just consider it, I want to give Betancourt a little bit more of a chance, right? I mean, last year, 31 games, 117 plate appearances. He was a 250 hitter, 248, right? I mean, 9 RBIs. He strikes out more than you want him to, but I think there is development there. I think there's a higher ceiling, and I feel like it would be premature to cut the leash on that. And he's a good defensive catcher. I mean, I think he calls a good game. So I'm not ready to just sell Betancourt. Now that doesn't talk about Lucroy, but that's more about just how I feel about Betancourt right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in a vacuum, I'm not for unilaterally just giving up on Betancourt either. But the fact that we are a quarter of the way through, and the wild card and the NL East, I mean, we are only 2.5 games out. I don't believe it, but
right.
I mean, the catcher spot has become an absolute black hole at the plate. There's no doubt about it. But I'm with you. I mean, I don't want to throw Betancourt to the curb. I mean, I think there's potential there. Curtis, what about you? I mean, how do you feel about Betancourt like that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my thinking would that he would be one of the pieces thrown in if you're going to make a trade for Lucroy. You wouldn't keep him around, and that, I mean, obviously the Brewers would need and want a catcher back, I would think, and this guy's still got a lot of potential. So that's my concern, is that there's still a lot there. Lucroy is obviously an amazing baseball player. He's hurt right now on top of everything else.
Right, broken toe.
Yeah. And I was sitting right in front of some Brewers fans when I was at the game, which seems weird that there were actually Brewers fans there, but they had actually driven down.
They travel.
They had, ironically enough, they had driven down from Milwaukee for the weekend and had been spending a time in Atlanta, which was very nice, very wonderfully friendly people. But I said something about that Lucroy being potentially traded to the Braves, and they looked at me like I had just asked them to, give me their children or something, because they were like, you can have Ryan Braun, you cannot have Lucroy. And I was like, no, we don't want Ryan Braun.
Well, and to that point, guys, Lucroy is under team control through 2017, like I said. $3 million this year, $4 million in 16, $5.25 million as a team option in 2017, which is like insanely
cheap. They're not. I mean,
this guy.
You'd have to give him all of Gwinnett.
Yeah, so right. Would you guys give up that kind of haul to get Lucroy, Curtis?
I would not, because that's not the final piece. I mean, if getting him in here meant that we had completed the lineup with great talent all around, I would ponder it. But no, because it's not the last piece that you need to make yourself a World Series champion.
Hammy, how about you?
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking Mark Teixeira, no. No, I mean, you're talking about his career, a 282, 340, 431 guy. He's 29 years old. Obviously very solid. It would be great to have an everyday catcher like that, but he is not – he's just not worth it at this point in the Braves' trajectory. Maybe if it was 2016 or wherever we were a little bit closer to our ultimate goal, and this was, and we were only weak at catcher, maybe, but it's not worth it. It's not worth to give up now and lose sight of what our long-term goals are.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's a little hard to say, not knowing what the deal would be. But, I mean, if they wanted Betancourt and Fried and, some sort of fringy guy, wouldn't you consider it to shore up the...
Well, of course, but they would never take that. They're not, I mean, oh my God, absolutely. Absolutely. I think they would want, knowing where the Braves are, they would want two people who are either they would want two number one picks or something, or two people who could play right now for them. They're going to ask a lot for Lucroy. To Curtis's point, I mean, he's a fan favorite. He's the future. in some ways of that franchise,
And they've got a lot
or a
of
key piece of it.
Yeah, having just watched that team, there's some good players on that team, but there's a lot of older guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what their farm system's like. I haven't checked up on Milwaukee's farm team lately, but yeah, I would imagine that they would want to do some serious restocking if they're dumping a 29-year-old catcher of that caliber for that little amount of money. They would want a lot to help themselves get stabilized in the future.
Yeah. And I guess the one thing for those that didn't see that story, the Brewers said, no, we're not interested.
Yeah. And you might have to eat Matt Garza in the process or something like that too.
Literally, Freddie would have to eat him.
Wow, that would be horrible.
And that makes it a tough trade.
All right, guys, next up, we're going to play You Be the GM. But first, a quick word from Front Row Seats. Get the best deals on tickets online. Visit frontrowseatsllc.com and use discount code ABT, and you won't be charged any service fees. Again, that's frontrowseatsllc.com. All right, guys, let's be the GM on a few topics. So, Hammy, earlier this week, Ken Rosenthal had an article about, so who are the next managers potentially on the hot seat? And Freddie Gonzalez was in that article.
Wow.
So if you're the GM...
Somebody's paying attention to us. Somebody's talking about us. Yeah.
If you're the GM, would you fire Freddie mid-season like this?
I wouldn't. I wouldn't see the point of it. I mean, I'm sort of happy with what he's done this year. It's funny when the stakes are lowered in the situation. I think that he's gotten a lot out of Jace Peterson. Andrelton's back. Freddie Freeman's back. I mean, I think we're a better team. I really do. I think we are a better team than we were last year at this point in the season. And I think Freddie, you have to give Freddie some credit. If we're going to dump on him for all the bad stuff, you don't see what the manager does, in the box score necessarily, but I think that he's been doing a great job with his team. And even if he wasn't, what's the point? It's not like Tony La Russa is out there, but he's only there for a week. I mean, there'd be no point to move past Freddie and get somebody new right now.
Yeah, I mean, in the article, Rosenthal mentioned something about that he's not a real favorite of John Hart's, which is interesting then thinking back to the Frank Wren firing press conference where Hart and Sherholtz and Bobby were up there, and someone asked, well, what kind of job do you think Freddie's done? And Bobby was like, he's been amazing. Oh my God, I can't believe what a great job he's done. Was Hart sitting there like seething about what a public display, vote of confidence that Bobby gave him? I don't know, but Ham, I mean, I'm with you. It's like if you were going to fire Freddie, the time was in the off season prior to this season. I'm no Freddie fan, and I think they should have fired him. I couldn't believe they didn't. But at this point, it's just, it is pointless.
You get nothing from it.
You get nothing from it. Curtis, how about you?
Yeah, and I read when the Marlins fired their manager and brought their GM down, who's had zero managerial experience ever. And there's a lot of teams like the Brewers just fired their manager, and Craig Counsell is now their manager. That there is a real lack of quality major league ready managers at this point. And when they're being snapped up immediately by teams that are willing to give them a lot of money. So I don't really see like you guys say, what benefit do you get from firing Freddie right now? I don't know that he's done as great a job as perhaps Ham does, but he should have been fired at the end of last year. And at this point, you're rebuilding. Let him ride this ship out at least through this season.
Don't you guys think that this team is overachieving though?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
some of that credit has to go to him.
It has to. I mean, and so you're not firing a manager if the team is overachieving. I mean, with the Marlins and the Brewers, it was obvious they were going in the wrong direction. I'm surprised by this team, and all the credit doesn't go to Freddie, but you certainly don't disrupt it.
No, I totally.
Yeah, I mean, you agreed with me. I'm just saying. I mean, I think that it's just there's no. I mean, this is a team that's doing better than they should have done.
And I will say, and this is not to take any excitement off of what we just witnessed. They played some kind of bad teams.
There's a lot of mediocre teams.
So,
you look at the schedule. I mean, this is a tough week coming up. We'll get to it, but there's a lot of weeks where you're like, meh, I like our chances. Yeah. Meh, I mean, there's a lot of 50-50 ball clubs out there.
I mean, they split with Tampa, who's got one of the best records in baseball. You can't take that away. But the Brewers are bad.
The Brewers are bad, no doubt about it. All right, guys, time to find the silver lining, the things that we can hang our hat on for this week. And there's a lot. Hammy, how about you?
My silver lining is Cameron Maben. I mean, extended his 9-game hitting streak today. His week added to a really nice May. I mean, his past 7 games, 5 runs, 6 hits, 2 doubles, 4 base on balls. Drove in 5 runs. So I think that's amazing for our center fielder. If that was a week, we said we're going to get from a center fielder earlier in the season, I would have been very, very pleasantly surprised, and I am. I mean, I think it's a great week for him.
All right, Curtis, how about you?
I'm going with my shot in the dark for this week, which was Williams Perez. I'm, pleasantly surprised by what he was able to do. I picked him as my shot in the dork. I'm going to leave that there. But yeah, I thought he was great, and if anything that we can get to help shore up the back end of the rotation is well needed. So he is my silver lining for the week.
Yeah, and I'm going to go with Fultinovich. I mean, earlier in the week, he had his worst start of the season. With 5 innings pitched, 5 runs, and then to bounce back and show that he really has that kind of potential. It was just terrific. I mean, Fulte, and especially after a 12-inning game, the day before where the bullpen, my God, the bullpen needed it. Really just terrific.
And touching 97.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very exciting to think about. Like, wow, I want this guy on our team for a long time watching that game.
Yeah, I mean, with Fulte and Miller, we have 2 flamethrowers.
Yeah.
It's kind of exciting.
I mean, you do.
Whistler looming, too.
Right.
And you think about, Tehran, who we know and we hope can be great and we love and would. I mean, you're looking at a top-notch rotation when these guys are pitching like this. It's very exciting.
Amazing what a terrific Tehran start will do. I mean, it just turns the entire thing around.
It really does.
All right, folks, our last word of the night from Front Row Seats. Don't forget to get the best deals on tickets online. Visit frontrowseatsllc.com. Use discount code ABT, and you won't be charged any service fees. Again, frontrowseatsllc.com. All right, guys, time for Shot in the Dark, our prediction for the coming week. But let's look back on our listener pick for Shot in the Dark from last week. It was from Twitter follower Council McCullen, which is kind of a cool name, by the way. And it was that Markakis would stay in the 4-hole all week, and he'd deliver 8 RBIs, 3 extra base hits, and no home runs. He did stay in the cleanup spot all week. He had no home runs, only 2 extra base hits and 2 RBI. So, not too bad, not too bad. All right, guys, before we get to our Shots in the Dark, let's check in on what we did last week. So, Kurt, you predicted that in his first start, Williams Perez would go 6 innings and give up 3 runs. So first, before we get to those results, someone on our message board mocked you.
No, you.
Well, both of us, really.
So it's like a transitive property type of thing.
Exactly.
It was.
Exactly.
He mocked Kurt through you.
Yeah. He got on me, Steve, for not making fun of how not an out there pick that was. And I did admit, and this is true, like when you said it, I really thought about it, and I'm like, I'm not going to be be the jerk that makes fun of Ham and Kurt's.
Well, you save that for me generally. Generally, you save that for me.
I
appreciate that. Not cheating on Curtis.
But Kurt, I did think it at the time. So he went 5 innings and gave up 1 run.
That's what I meant to say.
Yeah. So I predicted that across his 2 starts, Fulte would give up a total of 3 earned runs. He gave up 6, of course, 5 being in that first game and then 1 today. So, Kurt, the win begrudgingly goes to you this month.
My goodness.
This week.
Rightly earned.
All right, Kurt. What mediocre shot in the dark do you have this week?
It's a shot.
A flick in the dark. A flick in the gray.
A flick in the pretty well lit room. What do you have?
A shot in the
shadowy dark. At best.
I changed this just because of all the ridicule.
Okay, excellent.
Tehran has 2 starts this week. Yep. So I have Tehran going 1-1, giving up 3 earned combined. Is that bad?
No, I think that's an excellent one. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, Ham, how about you?
I'm going to stay with Tehran. I'm going to go super precise here.
Okay.
The Braves will win a 1-0 game against the Giants on Sunday. Tehran versus Bumgarner.
All right, very nice. I like it. And I'm sort of in that neighborhood as well. So we face Kershaw, Greinke, and Bumgarner this week. I predict that the Braves win 2 of those games. So, speaking of the coming week, West Coast road trip begins. 3 against the Dodgers, where we always fare well. 4 against the Giants.
Where we also always fare well.
Yes. And here are the pitching matchups. So, Williams-Perez against Brett Anderson and his 3.61 ERA.
That's the game everybody's going to be going to.
Oh,
Exactly.
man.
It's already sold out on a Monday night.
As opposed to the next game that no one's going to care about because that's Tehran Kershaw.
Ooh.
Kershaw has a 4.32 ERA. The last time he didn't give up at least 2 earned runs was April 17th.
Did you know that the Braves have only faced 4 left-handers this year?
No, that's amazing.
That is amazing.
That is amazing. Oh, my gosh. I remember there was last year, the year before, we faced like this absolute preponderance of lefties, which killed us because we were so lefty heavy in the lineup.
Exactly. Yep.
All right, we finish up the Dodgers series with Wood Greinke, who's been dominant with a 1.48 ERA. On to San Francisco, where it will be Shelby Miller against household name Chris Heston and his 4.33 ERA. Next is Fultinovich versus Tim Hudson, who has a 4.0.
Boo. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Then it's Williams-Perez for the second time of the week against Tim Lincecum and his 2.0 ERA. And Kurt, we were talking before the show that I was surprised at how good his ERA was. I just hadn't been paying attention. But you made the point that even if his ERA was 18, he still would dominate the Braves.
It is true.
And then the last game of the week, as Hammy mentioned, Tehran versus Bumgarner. So some really, sexy matchups this week, guys. And, particularly the Tehran starts against Kershaw and Bumgarner.
For me to sleep through.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's a tough one.
Monday night, 8 o'clock. Everything else is 10.
Yeah, they never do well on this first West Coast trip. I mean, I guarantee we could be. It seemed like forever we faced Ted Lilly in the Dodgers our first trip out west and would lose 10-1.
I know. Be interesting to see what Williams-Perez can do this week. How much of a fluke that 5 innings pitched 1 earned run was. I mean, wouldn't it be great if he showed that he really had some, because talk about just gravy if Williams-Perez was something.
Yeah, we mentioned the other 4, right? Absolutely.
It'd be something else. All right, so Curtis, what do you think the team goes this week?
I'm going to go 3-4, which I feel like is extremely positive.
Hammy, what do you got?
Yeah, I was on the fence there. I'm actually going to be more negative than Kurt. 2-5, 1-2, 1-3.
All right, I am riding high from this week and going 4-3. All right.
I like riding high with a 4.
Yeah. Well, hey, we're a 500 team.
So what is that? 2-1, 2-2? Is that what you're going?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Yeah.
You optimist.
Gotta be, I know.
You homer.
All right, guys, that is the show. Everyone, please make sure you have us in your RSS feeds or subscriptions on iTunes or Stitcher so that you don't miss any of our weekly shows. And as always, check us out at AtlantaBaseballTalk.com for past shows, to check out our blogs, and to post in our comment section. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at ATL Baseball Talk and to like us on Facebook. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and go Braves!
Thanks for listening to Atlanta Baseball Talk, your weekly podcast for all things Atlanta Braves. To find new shows, to post in our forum, or to send a comment, please visit us at AtlantaBaseballTalk.com.
Had to admit the problem.